show. Inspiration, motivation. One vision, hope to one new generation. Together we can live and learn. Yes, we're one family on the Alex Show.
Welcome to the show. Every year, men, women, and children, they go missing in Jamaica without a trace. Their family, friends, and the police have no idea who took them or what happened. But what the authorities do know is that human trafficking could be one of the reasons. Shanae Russell, Secretariat at the Ministry of National Security, is here with us to talk about it. Shanae.
Yes.
Human trafficking, how serious a world is it here in Jamaica?
Well, human trafficking is very serious in Jamaica. Globally, let's start there.
Yeah.
It's second to drug trafficking. So it is the second most illicit profit in crimes. So arms and ammunition take a backseat to human trafficking. And the International Labour Organization quotes that almost 45.8 million persons are enslaved globally.
So this is a modern day kind of slavery happening.
Yes, it is. And in Jamaica, so far, we've rescued since 2010 over 100 victims of human trafficking in Jamaica. And that's what we know about.
What do the perpetrators tell these victims? What are the stories they tell them to get them?
I think what most of us are seeking in this life is a better life.
Yeah.
An opportunity to better ourselves, to assist our family, if we have children, to even assist our children, and just loved ones overall. So we know that persons are looking for greener pastures.
Yeah.
You may be looking for it, I may be looking for it, and the world at large is looking for it. And some persons, this is their desperation. And so because opportunities are limited, when they see an opportunity, they jump at it without doing the necessary checks and balances, you know. Normally when we're looking at a job, we do our due diligence.
Yes, yes.
You might look if the company is probably registered, where the company is located, who and what makes up this company. But some persons, they don't do that.
Who are the kind of people that are behind human trafficking? Are these powerful men behind this business?
Yes, it entails everyone. As we say globally and locally, human traffickers don't have a specific face.
Yeah.
They are not what we can put a personality towards. It can be anyone, anybody, woman, men.
What do the victims look like? Like where they're from? What class of society they're from? What do they look like?
And again, human trafficking victims don't have a face. They come from well-to-do background and they come from not so well-to-do background. So we have both lower socioeconomic background and from what we deemed high. What our statistics have shown is that the victims, majority of our victims are between the ages of 13 and 20 years old. So, right there and then, that's our secondary school population.
Is it more with the girls compared to the boys?
Yes, but in recent times, there have been an increase in males.
What are the girls required to do and for the men and for the boys or the men?
Okay, so the women and the girls, they are more trafficked for sexual exploitation. So that's what we term sex trafficking. And they're also trafficked for labor and domestic servitude, for example, working in a household and you're not being paid at all, or you're being paid very meager wages, and you're also physically abused and also mentally sometimes. So that's what we term domestic servitude. So they're also trafficked for that as well, but majority is sexual exploitation. And the men are mostly trafficked for forced labor. They're also trafficked for sexual exploitation as well, and other forms of trafficking, because there's a long list of forms of trafficking. So it's not just sexual exploitation and forced labor. We also have organ harvesting, but we have not seen that in Jamaica.
Right.
And forced marriages, as well as...
You're not seeing the forced marriages here either?
No.
Okay.
right? But mostly forced labor, the men are trafficked for.
So a lot of Jamaicans too, they are not just exploited in Jamaica, but they are taken overseas.
Right. So a big distinction that we would like to make is between human smuggling and human trafficking, because sometimes persons tend to blur the lines between both.
Right.
Both is a crime, but in order for human smuggling to take place, the person have to cross the border. So you have to cross a national border. That is what we term human smuggling.
What do the victims look like? What is it that I should look out for, my neighbor should look out for?
All right, so these are just indicators. They don't suggest that trafficking is happening.
So you call the police,
Yes.
call the police on the neighbor.
But it just gives you something to look out for, that these are red flags. This might be happening. So things like, for example, the person movement is restricted. So you don't see that person alone, especially if the person is an adult. The person is always accompanied by somebody else. And if you're to converse with me, I do not answer. The person answers.
Wow.
Those
That's
are
some serious level of control.
Traffickers tend to have that level of control over some of their victims. That's a means of control. So they do not want the victim to communicate with persons, because out of a fear that they might say something that they shouldn't. And then this will cause an alarm. So that's one of the signs. Another sign is if, for example, if it's a child and the child is not going to school. Because we know that all children have the right to education.
Right.
So these children should be going to school. So, for example, if you're seeing them and they're, for example, working, whether it is probably in the yard or on a farm, or not working at all, but you know there's a child living in that household and they don't go to school, they rarely comes out the house or even the yard, that can tell something is happening, because children should be going to school and children should be even interacting with other children. So that's also another red flag as well.
All right, so we take a break. When we come back, we talk more about human trafficking in Jamaica.
Alex Show.
Today we are hearing more about human trafficking in Jamaica. Globally, the industry is estimated at US $150 billion every year. People are being held against their will and are being abused physically, mentally, and sexually. So we continue our discussion with Shanae from the Ministry of National Security. What are the stories that the victims share? What kind of trauma do they actually experience?
Okay, so they share stories of physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. So it's very sad. Even when I talk about it and I'm not a victim, it gets emotional for me. We've had persons who've attempted to even commit suicide because they feel that there is no hope. There's nothing else left for them after experiencing such a trauma. We've had persons, while in bondage, they were forced to commit abortions. They were physically abused every single day. And we're talking about persons in bondage for 2 years, 3 years, and they're being abused every day, both physically and emotionally. So these are just some of the stories that they share. And to be a survivor, I think it's a tremendous person, and it takes tremendous effort to just continue to live your life every day after experiencing such trauma. And that is why we've offered counseling right through.
That's your aftercare service.
Right. So the Victim Services Division on the National Task Force, they offer counseling to victims of trafficking and other victims of crimes overall. And we don't have a timeline as to when this counseling stops, because as you would imagine, there is no timeline on trauma. So even after, what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, persons experience that. So we have to continue working with them, because some persons, when I speak to them, they say they will have triggers. So for example, you work alone. So the trafficker might wear a cologne or something. So they pass someone and they smell the scent. Or, things like those, and it instantly takes them back to being in bondage, and they will just, I guess, go into a shell.
So there are these stories of boys and girls and men and women, they go missing for years and then they just resurface.
Some of them. So some victims, as we say, and we would like to distinguish between missing persons and trafficking, because sometimes we tend to blur the lines.
Right.
Not all missing persons are trafficked, and not because you're missing means that you are in human trafficking. Because the Jamaica Constabulary Force will tell you they have a return rate of 96%.
Good.
Right. Return within probably a week or less. So that 4% meaning that persons are still missing, or some persons might turn up dead, and so forth. But very few victims that we've investigated were missing and were being trafficked. Right. So we had to do our investigation to see if this person was actually in a trafficking ring when these persons turn up.
Well, initially, when you started to hear about these stories and you're now connected to all of this, how did you feel? How did you react? How did you react?
It's hard because it's hard to even imagine something like that happening to another human being.
Yeah.
Because I can't even, it's hard for me to imagine, because it's not your story, but you can just think about the pain that they were feeling or the trauma that they were going through. Because just physical pain, from when you're getting a cut or probably meeting an accident, and you're so traumatized. So can you imagine somebody that is going through that pain every single day? You have to take care of yourself, because if you're not careful, you might go into depression as well.
It's a strict word, I can imagine, because are these girls or boys, men, women, are they chained? Are they handcuffed? Because I can understand for the younger women or younger girls, but it's like a mental control.
Yes.
The door might be open, but you just refuse to walk through it.
Yes, it's more of a mental control. Some persons are in physical bondage while being trafficked. Very few, but a lot of times it's mental control, as you've rightly said. So the trafficker has a hold on that person. So it's more of an emotional abuse. And they have sometimes network. So they will threaten your family or tell you that they're going to kill your family or your loved one, and so that puts a mental hold on you. So you don't want to leave, because you're in the back of your head, you're thinking, what is going to happen to my mother? What is going to happen to my family, my father, my sibling, somebody of that nature? So those are the things that they use to put that mental block on you. And one of the things that they also do is to take away your documents. So they take away your passport, your ID, any form of identification. So that restricts your movement as well.
I don't want no friend like that. So we take a break. When we come back, more on human trafficking.
Alex Show.
Welcome back to the show. People in Jamaica are being promised love, money, and an exciting life, but instead they are being exploited in the business of human trafficking. Shanae, we were talking earlier about some of the experiences that people actually go through. How do you go about apprehending traffickers? Give me a scenario where you guys maybe set up a sting operation and you have to nab this person.
All right, so you're taking me into the investigative role.
Yes.
All right, so just to note that we have our anti-trafficking in persons vice squad within the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
It's like an undercover squad.
Yes.
I love undercover.
So there are parts of CTOC, which is the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Branch in the JCF. So that's our own team that investigates all trafficking in persons cases. So if you're ever to come up on a suspicious activity or you'd like to report, you will call them straight, and their number is, you can call them at 922-1337. That's CTOC line, and you will ask for the anti-tip vice squad. That's what we call them.
Right, so to give them the tip.
Right, to give them the tip.
Right.
Right. So they have done numerous operations. For example, we've had an operations a few years back at one of the hotels in Jamaica where our uncle was trafficking his niece.
She's supposed to trust her uncle. Or he was given, I don't know, he was supposed to take care of her.
Yes,
due
he's
to
supposed to take
situations.
care of her. And I think the scenario was the mother left the child with the uncle. Right, so after the child returns from school, the uncle should have been there to take care of her while the mother is at work and until the mother gets home. But the uncle was not doing that. The uncle was exploiting the child for monetary gain. So that was a sting operation that was very successful, and we were able to catch the perpetrator.
A lot of these victims, they are afraid to talk. They are very silent about it.
Yes.
How can we help victims? I know it can be really tough, but how can we help them to talk?
We can assist them to talk in terms of giving them emotional support.
Yeah.
So let them know that it is okay and they will be protected because our security arm protects them if it is that they need protection, whether it is 24/7 protection, whatever protection there is. And as I said, we also have a shelter that we can accommodate persons in if they would like to stay in the shelter. And so we have measures in place to protect them. So it's important to let them know that they are safe, or so they can feel safe and can talk up.
Do we have a registry here for sex offenders?
No, not to my knowledge. We don't have a registered sex offender registry.
We don't?
No, we don't.
Okay. That needs some serious attention. I'm just saying that. A lot of women are involved in this business, human trafficking business. Why the women are so powerful in this business, even more than men?
Because women are more trusting of women, other women, and we know that in previous years it was mostly women who were victims. And I think that's the reason for the name of even the United Nations protocol, the protocol to suppress trafficking in persons, mainly women and children. But in recent times, we've seen an increase in males, and in Jamaica, the ratio is about 60-40 from women to males. So it was not like that before. It was even a reduced amount. But we have seen an increase in male trafficking. For example, within last year, we've rescued 10 victims.
Yeah.
And majority were males. I think 6 were males and 4 were females. Yes. But
what kind of age group for men are we talking about?
we're talking between 20 and 30 years old. Yes.
One would want to think that it would be a lot harder, to hold a man against his will. But
No, it's the same form of control. So it's that emotional control that the trafficker will have over the man. And sometimes these men are not local persons. Sometimes they are trafficked into the country from other countries. And so, as I said, they will withhold their identification documents. And sometimes these persons, they can't speak the language. So they're not English speakers. And so, it's harder to communicate with a local person to say, hey, this is happening to me. Right.
where are some of the places your team would pick up victims? Where are they working? Where are they being exploited?
Okay, so some of the places that we tend to find victims that you can be on the lookout is within, for example, clubs, nightclubs, bars, massage parlors. We can look just in commercial areas, just general areas like that. Even in your household or your neighbor's household. Yes.
They start looking over the fence.
Yes, right. We've had a victim like that, not from Jamaica, where she was being held captive in a household in the southern part of the island.
Wow.
Right, and she was, I think, about 13 years old at the time. Right, and it was a person who saw an ad on the television, a human trafficking ad. Yes,
That's
and
good.
said, but I've seen that little girl. I've never seen her going to school. I hardly see her come out.
Looks funny.
Looks funny. And that's how we were able to get the trafficker. And that's one of our seminal case in Jamaica. It even went to the Court of Appeal. Right, that the child that was living in the household during one of our southern parishes, she was washing, she was cooking, she was taking care of the children, because the man and his common law wife had 4 children, and she was taking care of all of them. Yeah, while being sexually exploited by the man.
What needs to be done? What needs to be done? What's the urgent matter? What's the urgent matter for your ministry?
Okay, so the urgent matter for our ministry and for the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, NATFATIP, is prevention. Is to get the message out there, and that is why we're thankful to be here today, because this is also one way in which we can get the message out there to persons to say, hey, this is happening, this is real, this is in Jamaica, it's not a foreign crime, because a lot of persons think this is not happening. This is not a movie, it's real life scenarios. There are many victims out there who wants to be rescued. And so it's to get the message to say, hey, this is happening. This is how you can protect yourselves. This is how we all can prevent it. This is how we can report suspicious activity to the police. Just prevention. Because, as we say, prevention is better than cure. We'd like to catch persons before they end up in a life of trafficking. So we'd rather do all the sessions than to prosecute a matter before the court. So it's to get the message out there. So we are embarking on a social media campaign very soon. And come next month, we have Trafficking in Persons Week every year in July. That's the end of July. And also on July 30th is World Day Against Trafficking in Persons annually. So every year we embark on a wide range of activities just to get the message out there. To say, hey, this is TIP. Trafficking in persons, this is how we can prevent it, this is how you can protect yourselves. Because we'd like to catch you before you end up in a life of trafficking.
Thank you so very much. This is very enlightening. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you for sharing with us. Let me tell you, I learned a lot. I had no idea that it was so prevalent here in Jamaica, and we need to do better. We have to look out for our neighbors. We have to look out for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so very much for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
All right, so I want to thank Shanae Russell for sharing with us today on the Alric Show. So do your part. See how you can help your neighbor, your friend. Tell them about human trafficking in the simplest way that you understand it. All right, I'm Alric McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining us. The Alric Show will be back next week.
Join the Alric Show family. Follow and like us on Instagram at The Alric Show. Share with us on Facebook and on Twitter. And subscribe to The Alric Show YouTube channel for all episodes and behind the scenes with Alric and our guests.
On The Alric Show.